People often say that all we do is follow overseas, right? But I remember as a kid growing up in the 70s, I really loved New Zealand music. And in fact, people like Shona Lang, even the Formula with Nature and songs like that, I really loved. Hello Sailor was the first ever album I bought. The first album they put out, and I thrashed it. My mother hated it, but I just thrashed that album. And, because they were from home, they resonated for me. So becoming, a New Zealand musician later on was really, really important to me because I wanted to be just like my idols, right? But by the time I had sort of grown from that particular phase, from being a small child into being a teenager and actually a young adult, it became about my culture, my part of New Zealand, my experience of being New Zealand, right? And so in in doing those types of things, you actually contribute to that edge, right? And some people might say that the only thing that is culturally distinct about New Zealand music is the Māori language, right? But I also think there is a certain style of playing. There is a certain type of musician we grow, and there are certain feels. Like if you listen to Elliot, for instance, our bass player play, right? Elliot has a totally different way of interpreting funk and soul, and he's great. His timing is great, but he has a different way of playing. You look at New Zealand reggae, for instance, all the way through from, bands like Herbs, because for me, Herbs were the quintessential, not just Pacific band, but New Zealand reggae band. And there was just something about them. And I think they had refined their sound by the time they'd hit that Long Ago album. And it was really, it was reggae that couldn't have been played anywhere else but here, And I absolutely still hold that up as the best ever New Zealand album, produced. But there is a way that we have of playing. There is a musical culture that we have. And you can always tell, at all the music shows. So you go to the Silver Scroll, you go to the TUI Awards, you can tell all the newbies because they're the ones running around pretending to be rock stars, right? All the rest of us are just going, I've been there and done that, mate. When 5 people buy your album and stuff and it goes to #1, you'll be cool for about 2 years and then you'll come over here with all the rest of the oldies, right? And that's what I love too about New Zealand musicians. There is a real lack of ego, right? And I love that. I remember when Hello Sailor were inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I was one of the finalists for the Maioha that year. And I'm standing there, Graham Brazier comes across and says, bro, want a photo? Grabs me and we go across and we have a photo, and I'm having a photo with my idol, Graham Brazier, Hello Sailor, right? And that's the thing I think that really makes New Zealand culture, and it's reflected in our music, that kind of humility. New Zealand music isn't as out there, right, as other types of music are. When we produce music, it tends to be more. It's like when we cheer for the All Blacks, right? We don't jump up and down and go crazy and all the rest of it. In fact, you'd think half the crowd were asleep at an All Black game, right? You go to any other nation in the world and they're all going, half mad. But here in New Zealand, we're all biting our fingernails and go, oh, we're going to lose, we might lose, we might win, we might lose. And I think New Zealand music is a bit like that. We don't want to be too overstated. We're fairly humble about our music, and it comes out in the sound. And so while there may not be, overall there may not be this overt cultural thing, there is actually a feel about New Zealand music and a kind of a vibe about it, which is understated, which I really, really like. Because I really hate show-offs, right? I really love people who go out there and just try to do a good job, right? Because that's all you can ask of people, is do a good job. And sometimes what we do is good enough to conquer the world, and other times it's good enough for us, and that's okay. But I think underpinning all of our music is this sense of understatement that I really, really like. And it goes across all forms of music, not just pop music. I've heard it in classical music and stuff as well. And so you sit there with Ross Harris and people like that, and they're not wandering around with great big heads. They're just part of the crowd, right? And I remember I was sitting there with Ross once. I was going, where's Gillian? And he points across the table, straight across, and there she is. Oh, shit. and that's what New Zealand musicians are like. And that's what comes across in the music, is this understatement. And I think it's what makes our music great, and it's what I love about it the most.